Ant-Man is a 2015 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name, Scott Lang and Hank Pym. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, it is the 12th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film was directed by Peyton Reed from the screenplay by writing teams of Edgar, Wright and Cornish, and Adam McKay and Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd stars as Ant-Man. In the film, Lang must defend Pym's Ant-Man shrinking technology and a plot heist with worldwide ramifications. Development of Ant-Man began in April 2006 with the hiring of Wright to direct and co-write with Cornish. By April 2011, Wright and Cornish had completed 3 drafts of the script, and Wright had shot test footage for the film in July 2012. Pre-production began in October 2013, after being put on hold so that Wright could complete The World's End. Casting began in December 2013 with the hiring of Rudd to play Lang. In May 2014, Wright left the project citing creative differences. They still received screenplay and story credits with Cornish. The following month, Reed was brought in to replace Wright, while McKay was hired to contribute to the script with Rudd. Filming took place between August and December 2014 in San Francisco and the Metro, Atlanta. Ant-Man held a world premiere in Los Angeles on June 29, 2015, and was released in the United States on July 17th, and is the last film in Phase 2 of the MCU. It grossed more than $519 million worldwide and received positive reviews from critics, who generally welcomed the film's smaller stakes than the other MCU films, as well as its cast, particularly Rudd, Peña, Lilly, and Douglas. Critics also praised the humor and visual effects. A sequel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, was released in 2018, and a third film, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, is scheduled for February 2023 release. The cast includes Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, Ant-Man, a former systems engineer at Vista Corp, and a petty criminal who acquires a suit that allows him to shrink in size, but increase in strength. Regarding Rudd's casting, producer Kevin Feige said, "Look at the origin of the petty crook who comes into contact with the suit and does his best to make good, and then look at someone like Paul Rudd, who can do slightly unsavory things like break into people's houses and still be charming, and you root for him in the end." Director Peyton Reed compared Lang to George Clooney's character Danny Ocean from Ocean's 11. Rudd stated that in preparation for the role, he basically didn't eat anything for about a year. "I took the Chris Pratt approach to training for an action movie. Eliminate anything fun for a year, and then you can play a hero." Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne, the daughter of Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, a senior board member of Pym Technologies who helps Darren Cross take over the company. Throughout the film, the character's progression brings Hope closer to becoming a hero, namely the Wasp. Corey Stoll as Darren Cross, or Yellow Jacket, a former protege of Pym's who takes over his mentor's company and militarizes a similar version of the Ant-Man technology to create the Yellow Jacket suit. Bobby Cannavale as Jim Paxton, a San Francisco Police Department officer who is engaged to Lang's former wife, Mackie. Michael Peña as Louis, Lang's former cellmate and member of his crew. T.I. Harris as Dave, a member of Lang's crew. Judy Greer as Maggie, Lang's estranged former wife. Anthony Mackie, reprising his role as Sam Wilson the Falcon, an Avenger who's former pararescueman trained by military in aerial combat using specially designed windpack. And Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, a former SHIELD agent, entomologist and physicist who becomes the original Ant-Man in 1963 after discovering subatomic particles that make transformation possible. He later mentors Lang to take over the role. Now, I found myself really enjoying this film. Like a lot of critics stated, it's nice to see an MCU film with a smaller premise instead of world domination or a baddie trying to take over the whole universe. This film is led by the ever-charming performance from Paul Rudd, an actor I'm a huge fan of. Ant-Man offers all of Marvel's usual thrills, but on an appropriately smaller scale. Albeit not as smoothly as successful as their other predecessors, it still has a quirky charm to it. And the film is almost playful in unexpected ways and graced with a generally off-center sense of humor, and it is far less bombastic than some of its predecessors within the MCU universe. It almost acts like a sort of B-movie to the grade A movies of the rest, but I don't mean that in a bad sense. It's just that it's much more smaller scale, and Lang is a much more real kind of hero, down to earth, everyday, who of course is even crossed over onto the bad side, as it were. The father-daughter dynamic here played between Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly works quite well, as he now tries to understand and relate to her complicated father, and of course Lang sort of wedges himself in between these two quite well. Also, I felt Rudd and Lilly had a quite good chemistry here, and albeit that there's sort of early stages maybe within this relationship, you definitely feel a nice tension building between the two of them. I would have been interested to see how Edgar Wright would have directed this film, as I'm a big fan of his work generally, but in saying that though, Peyton Reed does a good enough job. Corey Stoll is okay as Yellow Jacket, and I never really feel though that as an antagonist he really gets much time to breathe and bring the role to the heights that maybe a good actor like him could have taken it to. Michael Douglas adds a little bit of class to this film, of course, and I loved his rapport with Paul Rudd, and just having two actors of that standard really just brings the film to life. The rest of the cast also do their job well. Michael Peña as Lewis is nice sort of fun foil as well as T.I. Harris playing one of Lang's crew. I just really like the dynamics between Lang and his friends, and it just kind of plays off quite realistic and believable. For me, this film is really carried here once again by a fantastic performance by Paul Rudd. I never would have seen Paul Rudd being a superhero, I must be honest. But in saying that though, Ant-Man is the perfect character for him to play. And it really, once again, is perfect casting on Marvel's part. One of their biggest strengths in all these movies. It's fun, it's quirky, without being too over the top compared to some of the MCU movies. By no means the best film in the MCU series. It is a good introduction though to another character that of course would become relatively important, particularly in the grand Avenger movies. Ant-Man gets an 8.5 out of 10.